Besides the transition property, which we can use to tell CSS to, well, provide a transition between two changes, we can also set up a more detailed animation. For that, we first of all have to define an animation in CSS. And we do this by writing @keyframes and then any name of our choice, for example, slide fade. But again, this name is up to you. Now in here, you can define in detail how the animation should behave and which different states it should have. And you express this with percentages. You, for example, say that at 0% of animation completion, so at the start, you, for example, want to have a transformation along the x-axis of 0, so it hasn't been moved. And in addition, you set the scale to 1. Scale is another transform function which you can add to change the size of a block. Then let's say after 70% of the animation time, you want to change this to move it to 120 pixels to the left and scale it up a little bit. Make it 10% bigger by setting the scale to 1.1. 1 is the original scale, 1.1 is 10% bigger. And then here at 100%, we want to translate X to the full minus 150 pixels, so move it the entire way to the left, and set scale back to 1, so that we just bump up the size in the middle, or a little bit after the middle of the animation, and move it almost to the end here at this point and entirely to the end here and bring it back to its normal size. And these are the different states we have in our animation now. That's now our defined animation and the different states, the so-called keyframes, we want to reach during that animation. And we now apply this by going to our block first of all and removing transition there. We can move transition and animation together if we want to, but often you'll use just one of the two. So here I want to use an animation, hence I comment out transition. And in the class which we add eventually, I'll comment out transform and instead add the animation CSS property. That property now allows us to add an animation when that CSS class is added to an element. Here we now refer to one of our keyframe sets which we defined. So in this case at slide fade, so using this name here. Then we still specify a duration, which will be split up across these keyframes. So here, let's say 0.3 seconds. And also an easing function, which controls how fast these different states are reached. If we start fast and end slow, or if we start slow and end fast. If we save all of that and reload, if I click animate, you see it animates, but then it snaps back to the original state. That's not a bug, that's how CSS animations behave by default. We need to add forwards here to tell CSS that we want to keep the final keyframe, the final state, as the new look, the new state of the animated element. So by adding forwards here, if we save that and reload, if I click animate, it now moves over there with our custom animation and keeps that final state. And that's how we can implement animations with CSS transitions or CSS animations. And all we're doing with view here is we're adding this animate class dynamically to the to be animated element, which of course also doesn't have to be a div, but could be anything. And often that is all you need. But there also is a scenario where this is not enough. So let's explore that next.